I would like to thank all my awesome subscribers for helping me find awesome paranormal stories, and because of your help, I have tons of videos on my to-do list, and I would like to thank Terry for this next one. There is a very remote lake in eastern Kyrgyzstan that has been surrounded in mystery ever since man first came to this region. Now this lake is surrounded by freezing cold weather, but the lake never freezes and is called the Warm Lake. And the early settlers used to talk about a race of giant human-like creatures that once lived in the caves around this lake. And in the early 1930s, a paranormal researcher stumbled upon some very strange stories about giants and hidden caves within this area. So he set off on an expedition to see what he could find. And right away he found a man who had one amazing story to tell. This man told the researcher that he and his friends were fishing on the lake's northwestern shore when they saw a cave. And these fishermen knew all about the legends of secret caves and giants, so they really wanted to explore it and see what they could find. But this cave was impossible to get to without ropes or pickaxes. So they decided to come back the next day. Now it took a little bit of work, but they were able to get to the cave, and what they allegedly found inside was just mind-blowing. This man said that he and his friends discovered 3 human skeletons, and these skeletons were at least 10 feet tall, and they had on very strange, silver bat-shaped amulets around their necks. Now after this man's confession, a group of Russian scientists went to go examine these skeletons. Now these scientists couldn't determine how old they were, but after their examination, they took the skeletons and no one ever saw them again. Now this researcher was hooked, and he went to the local archives to see if he can find any more stories about these giants. And to his surprise, he stumbled upon another encounter that happened in the early 19th century. 3 boys were diving in the lake looking for mussels when they discovered a very remote cave, and the boys decided to go explore it. And while they were exploring, they came face to face with giant human-like beings, and they ran away as fast as they could back to town, and they told everybody. But only a few people believed them. Now these stories are very interesting, but there is little if any evidence to back up these claims. But this next encounter is pretty shocking. In the early 1980s, this lake became the go-to place for the Soviets to test their torpedoes, underwater missiles, and military diving equipment. And they also used this lake to train the recon divers known as the Frogmen. And in 1982, during a Frogman training exercise, the divers encountered a group of what they described as aquatic humanoids. And these humanoids were huge. They must have been at least 10 feet tall. Now the divers encountered these beings at the depth of over 150 feet. And although the water was freezing, these humanoids were only wearing tight-fitting silver suits, and they also had on very strange, sphere-like helmets. Now these military divers couldn't believe what they had encountered, and right away they came to the surface and they told their commander. Now since these were highly trained military personnel, their commander believed them, and the Soviet army wanted to capture them. And a group of 7 more frogmen were dispatched to this area in hopes of capturing all, or at least one of these human-like creatures. And not too long after their first dive, they encountered these beings again, and when they tried to put a net around one of them, the entire team was propelled right out of the water by an extremely powerful, unknown force. Now since these divers were at such a low depth, almost all of them died, as they didn't properly decompress, and the ones that survived became invalids. Now at that time there were fishermen on the lake, and they saw the divers fly about 30 to 50 feet right out of the water, and they thought that this was some sort of drill, but they couldn't understand why the Soviet military would do that to their own people. Now there are also a lot of other reports of hidden caves and giant human-like beings in the other nearby lakes within this region, as well as a ton of UFO and USO sightings. And I just did a video about Mount Shasta, and Mount Shasta is notorious for hidden caves and giants. Then we have the giants of Solomon Islands, the giants of Ecuador, the giants of Romania. I mean, the list just goes on, making me wonder if this is all connected with the Hollow Earth, and if these giants that are believed to exist throughout the world are all one and the same. Until next time, this is Paranormal Junkie. Make sure to hit that subscribe button and stay tuned.